Alright guys, so I want to start this series about analyzing top players. If we want to become better, we should analyze the best or some of the best at that position. So we're actually going to go to here, spectate, console, and we're going to check out this tournament here that, I don't know if you guys know about this tournament, but it's the big Marvel Rivals tournament thingy. And this is among the final teams, right? I believe this is like the semi-final. So obviously, highly competitive environment, right? If you can play well, right? And this guy's the #1 Starlord in the game. If you can play like this against some of the best people in the world, then obviously you're doing something that we all want to see. You know, we all want to do as Starlord players. So 48% accuracy, whatever. Let's get to the point. So first of all, and we can see the ranks pretty good, you know, one above all, eternity, right? It's important to understand, guys, that this is different from just playing ranked, right? These people all have mics, they're all on the same page, right? If you can perform as well as, and we saw his stats, he was MVP, if you can perform that well in these competitive environments, then this is the highest level play. So let's watch and analyze. So as you can see, first of all, his aim is very good, right? Amazing aim, like hitting every shot. One of the important elements of this character is, of course, ult charge, right? You know, everybody knows about that. His ult is very powerful. Of course, if you have aim like that, then you will, of course, not only create pressure, but create ult charge. But notice that he's taking a high ground here. It's very important to understand different ways to play this character. You can either play behind the tank and kind of just help push on the front line. If you have a healthy front line push, you can start to flank and move around, right? You can play a more active style. So you can see here, mostly shooting the tank. Typically, you don't want to shoot the tank too much. I'm not saying I'm better than this guy. Obviously, he's better than me. But, you know, typically you don't want to shoot the tank too much. It has been working for him, though. Anyways, let's kind of check this out, right? But, you know, for those who say never shoot the tank, obviously that's not true. You can shoot the tank, right? You see him shooting the tank. People always say, oh, don't ever shoot the tank. He's just giving ult charge. You know, you can shoot the tank sometimes. And, you know, obviously sometimes this character can just be you ult charging, right? Which seems like that's what he's trying to do. And sometimes that's okay, right? I know that's a little boring. Like when you think of Psylocke, for example, it's, you know, people make a joke, they call it ult charge simulator, right? There's more to it than that, but to a certain, you know, extent, especially you're playing against 3 tanks here. As you can see, they have 3 tanks. So, you know. And as you can see here, he takes an alternative approach. Let's look at that again. I want you to see that. It's important. This is kind of the drop-down shot, right? And I know some of you good Starlords know about this. You rise up and you fall, and you kind of fall on your target, right? And I think here he's really trying to force out the soul bond of Adam Warlock. Once you force out the soul bond, you can, you know, it's one of the most important things about Starlord is to what they call ult tracking. You know, once all their ults are depleted, you can wipe out the entire team. So he's going to attempt to do that. He predicts it perfectly. As you can see, the Invisible Woman on the top left, you see she has 97% ult, so not quite there yet. He predicts it perfectly. The only problem is his team is not alive to capitalize on it. I always say you should probably wait for your team to be around to ult, right? So he does predict the ult tracking very well here, which is a very difficult skill. He knows that Invisible Woman does not have her ult yet. Ultimately, though, it doesn't matter because it's wasted. So this is something, obviously this guy's better than me. But, very important, right? Typically, you don't want to ult in isolation because you need your teammates to cause a distraction, to capitalize on it, right? It's easy, especially with 2 shield tanks. 3 shield tanks. You know, they can kind of play out of that. Oops. Yeah, not the best start. We know how, but we know we can learn a lot from this. Just as you can see, 59% accuracy. I average about 29%, so you know, I'm not that good. But anyways, good against flyers. That's some good shots, though. You know, I know that they say, "Oh, don't shoot tanks too much," but if you can hit the headshots like that, right, then it doesn't really matter who you're shooting against. And notice he's always jumping, right? One of the reasons you jump is to get headshots. It's very hard to aim well and also jump, because especially if you're on controller, because when you press the A button to jump, you're taking your finger off the right stick. So it's a very difficult skill to sort of constantly be jumping and readjusting your right stick to aim properly. So that's something you might want to think about if you're jumping constantly like this. You have to work on how to not only jump but aim well at the same time, and that gives you a much higher headshot percentage. And when you jump and press the L2, it gives you like this high jump, as you can see, right? He jumped and pressed L2. That's kind of a technique there, and it gives you much higher chance of getting a headshot. So it's very difficult, right? You're jumping, you know, if I was to imagine him playing with his controller now, it's constantly jumping and constantly readjusting the right stick to aim properly. That's kind of a bad matchup, honestly, no more. And remember, a lot of the time you can be on the front line. It really depends on what you're going up against. If your team is struggling on the front line, as you can see, they are struggling with front line pressure. And if you're in that situation, you know, you might want to just kind of help your team push from the front line. But as you can see, you can always get into these situations. So you don't want to be stuck in one thing. What I do is, if the other team starts backing up, as you can see, which is happening here, then you can start flanking a little bit. You don't want to end up right behind them. He's more of a left, right, or front guy, right? Front line, sort of, with the tank, or left to the right. You don't want to be behind the other team. He doesn't have the escapability to really play behind the other team. He's not like Black Panther or Spider-Man, who, you know, ridiculous escapability, or Captain America, or even Venom. He doesn't have that. I mean, unless you have the teleporter with the raccoon, right? Which they don't have it right now. But he also doesn't have the combo power of a flanker, right? If you're comboing, right, with magic, Black Panther, Spider-Man, that combo is supposed to lead to a kill, right? There's no real combo with Starlord that leads to a kill. So it's not like, he's not a character that really is designed to be a total flanker. He's more of a side guy or a frontline guy, right? You know, independent of whether you're playing the ult charge style.
They hit a checkpoint. Now might be a good time to stop them.
And if we look at the stats, obviously 54%, that's excellent, right? High damage. You know, sometimes I play this character, I get very little damage. You know, even if I'm MVP, you know, my damage might not stand out. But this guy's leading the entire lobby, right? Which is very difficult to do with a character that, from a certain range, almost does no damage. As you can see here, he's attacking the sides, right? Once again, notice they have a healthy frontline pressure, right? When you do that, then you can start attacking the sides, typically. You know, kind of a bad spot to be in. But yeah, you don't usually want to attack the sides unless you have a healthy frontline push. You can try anyways, but usually what that does is you end up in this awkward situation where the other team ends up pushing so far ahead that being on the side, you end up behind that team. You know, and when you're behind them, he doesn't. Like I said, you don't have the escapability to get out of it. So as you can see, he's going on the side here. He does end up behind them, but he is able to escape, of course. You know, it's not always the best sentence. Good aim. Good shots. And, you know, whenever you're in, like, an ult like this, yeah, you can always get this nice ult charge doing his little spin move. And Now the ults, as you can see, the ult tracking, right? It's all gone now. No ults. It's over. Big ult coming. In theory, not for the Magneto, but he still plays through the Magneto, right? So it's very important to know: are they ulting? Are they done ulting? Right? Raccoon finished ulting. Everyone, no one had an ult, and that's it, right? What are you gonna do about it?
Don't give them another inch, or else. The final 10 seconds.
All right, looks like they're gonna finish this one off here. And you know, one of his best things is if you can ever end up in a situation, his spin attack is very good against supports, especially invisible women, because she can't turn invisible anymore, or Luna because she has no escapability, right? So this spin move, if you can land some shots and then kind of, it's a good finisher, the spin move, right? I know I said he has no real combo, but if you can get people's HP down to like 50% and you go and finish them with a spin move, that can get you some nice kills. So think of it as a finisher rather than a starter. It's an ult charge builder and a finisher. That's how I kind of see that move. You don't want to just be using it for no reason, but if you see a large group and you think you can go in there and get away with it, right? Very important to not put yourself in a bad spot, right? If you can do the spin move and you know you can escape, just get some ult charge and get out, yes. And then also you can use it as a finisher. It has those are its main utilities. You see the jump and the aim is still well, right? That's not easy to do. Something you might want to work on is jump and still maintain good aim. Because whenever you jump, remember you're taking the control stick to the A button away from the stick, right? Which makes it harder to readjust. On PC, it's probably easier to do this. And you know, I think he should just give up here. Probably. Nothing's happening. Okay. But yeah, remember, you know, think about your target priority. If you feel like, okay, yeah, like I said, shooting tanks is fine. As you can see, this is the best player in the world shooting tanks. But you know, it's very good to keep an eye on everything else. You know, keep an eye on other enemies. Like once you get this, you have a bit of a push here, right? You could see them backing up. I'm not saying in this particular scenario, this guy can prevent it easily, but in theory, this is a good time to take a different angle, right? And he's gonna go in for the ult charge spin move, which is fine. And they got a nice combo here. That's huge. Okay, that's very nice. And they don't have an ult to combo. As you can see, Luna was immobilized, so she couldn't use her ult. And so, you know, your ult choice is very important. You don't want to just use it anywhere. Remember, you got to track what they have. I mean, this guy is playing through Magneto and 2 ults that can counter his ult. That's tough, right? You know, some people say bait with his ult. You don't always want to do that. Sometimes it's better to wait it out. But it really depends on what the trajectory of the game. If you feel like your team has control, then you don't have to bait with it. But if you feel like you can't force out their ults, then just, you know, you can try to use it as a bait ult, meaning force out the support ult. Good frontline push, right? And so now is a good time to maybe take another angle, right? And then think about where else you can shoot from. And that's kind of what he's doing here, right? Fighting other duelists rather than just tanks. One-on-one with the Hela. Tough to win a one-on-one in this rank because healers are always taking care of them. So you don't want to get too close to the enemy. But like I said, you know, it's good to shoot other than the tank. You know, obviously he is shooting the tank a lot. But it could be just because they're playing a high-ranked game, so it's tough. This is a case where obviously the ult charging didn't work in their favor. They were more prepared that time. And this is another great thing he has, right? The spin move is great with Agamotto and other immobilizing ults, right? So, you know, remember, he's not just an ult charge guy. He's great at finishing. His best combo is shoot people like this, then do the spin move. But it doesn't work against tanks. The spin move is not going to kill most tanks. You know, but if you can find like a flyer and you hit them, get them down to 60%, you do the spin move, you can get a kill there, right? And look, the spin move here. You know, it helps. That's some good stuff, though. These are good shots, obviously. This guy's aim is really his best skill, right? Hits every shot there. And, you know, I think it's silly to try to match your Starlord with his. This guy's not even a Lord Starlord. Smidgery on the other team. Yet he tries to match the #1 Starlord. That's a little bit of a mistake there, if you ask me. It looks like he's thinking about his ult now. You always want to rise up. And that was good because, look, you know, the ult can't save. The Luna ult can't really save. So as you can see here, he does kind of force out the ult there in that scenario, rather than sort of wait it out. And that's okay sometimes. If you feel your team is stalemating, sometimes forcing it out can be more effective. And that's kind of the drop down, right? Look at the drop attack, right? Very powerful because nobody really can deal with you. Nobody even knows you're there. Over here, personally, I'll be shooting them. I'm not saying I'm better than this guy, but I'm just saying, look at their HP, right? This is a good time. I always try to keep an eye on other targets. That's how I play him. You know, of course, this guy is more talented than I am. I'm just saying that in theory, you know, this is a good time to keep an eye on them, especially they're down both duelists, right? I don't even, oh no, where's, this guy's down. She's not in here, right? So you have a good opportunity to come kill these two. You want to keep an eye on all targets as much as you can. It's not easy, right? Especially in these heated fights. This is an attempt. So this is an example of why I don't see him as a flanker, right? This is the best Starlord in the world. You know, what combo can he really do to get a quick kill, right? In a 5v1, there's no way. You know? If he can't do it, then you can't. But if you have a teleporter, maybe you could. With the raccoon thing. And he has the ult now, and they don't, right? So this would be a great time for him to ult if he had some capacity to push here. But now he waited too long, right? Invisible Woman has now had her ult. You can see it in the top left corner. So he's gonna try, but she does block it, right? But it's okay because, you know, it's also good to force things out. Personally, I don't like the Doctor Strange ult over there because she's already in her ult. I think forcing out the Invis ult was okay, right? That's not the problem, but I think the Doctor Strange probably shouldn't have ulted following that.
No stopping the Starlord.
I'm ready to put on a show. Down to 30 seconds.
Full mutant guard.
Nice. These are just good shots. Let's watch them again. I think he was jumping. Look at the effect of the jump, right? Because he's elevated. Well, he wasn't elevated though. But because he's elevated, he gets the headshot, right? And I hate doing that because it's annoying. It's hard to aim well while also constantly pressing the jump button. I don't. I tried experimenting with switching the jump button to a different button, but I don't know. I just found it uncomfortable. So
2, 3.
yeah, MVP performance. You saw 48% accuracy. I think we have a good idea of how the best Starlord in the world plays, right? His aim is very good. He jumps a lot so he can get headshots. He builds ult, knows when to ult. I'm sure in his best games, in other games, he's flanking a little more, right? Fighting from the sides. But, it's okay to fight from the front line, right? As you can see from here. Really depends on what's happening in the match. All right.